This is a cute little exchange of pleasantries, small talk after 15 minutes.
I wanted to get that in earlier, but we got carried away.
Okay.
Okay, then, so we are live. Hello, and welcome everyone. We have today with us Farhan Khan from Starcom, Pakistan. He's the Chief Operating Officer over there. And with us, we have a very special guest, our friend and our previous colleague from the Middle East, General Manager of the OMD UAE, Farah. How are you, Farah, and how are you, Farhan?
Very good, thank you.
Good, Samir.
And how are you guys
Thanks for-
coping up with the lockdown? Karachi, Dubai, Lahore. Farah, let's start with you. How's the lockdown treating you?
From our end, well, in Dubai, as you know, we're completely locked up. We don't have a curfew here. We have a full 24-hour lockdown. Only like allowed to leave the house once every 3 days. So it's safe to say we're hanging on to our sanity with like a thread, but coping, you know.
But work from home is going on, huh?
Yeah, it's been going on for more than a month now, so we've pretty much adjusted to it. Yeah.
So that's your new normal new routine, I guess.
That's a
Yes.
new norm. That's
That's
a
a
new
new-
norm.
And how has the media landscape changed in UAE, for example? If we start with you, Farah, what's going on? How is it different from what it was around 2 months back?
So obviously there's, you know, with the new dynamics, there's been a complete migration into specific platforms. So what we're seeing is not changes as much as it is, you know, propelling a lot of the platforms forward. So, you know, digital has been on double-digit growth in the region for a very long time. But now what we're seeing is more time spent across certain channels. And TV is making a comeback, actually. You know, so broadcast TV has been on a steep decline in the region. And recently we've seen this whole appointment viewing thing pick up again because people are obviously spending so much time home. So those are the two biggest trends, but there's micro trends that we can touch upon later that have been really interesting and that really kind of help surface like the subcultures that are emerging online. So that's been, I think, the major change. Yeah.
And Farhan,
And,
in Pakistan, what's going on?
Yeah, Farah.
I think, yeah, you guys are well aware of it, but just to highlight that, you know, this new norm of working from home is something that we all Pakistanis are witnessing, and, you know, some of us are really enjoying it. I don't know about everyone, especially who are married and have kids. So yeah, a lot of changes. So in-home activities, in-home media has really picked up, which is TV and digital. Digital consumption has picked up a lot. So from a macro level, these two mediums have increased a lot. When you see out of home, both out of home as media and activation, they are really suffering and will suffer for a while, even if the lockdown goes to an end. So broadly, yes, this is, and a lot of consumer behaviors are changing as well, which again leads into the media consumption side of it. Because to be honest, there is a lot of disruption happening when it comes to a regular Pakistani living his or her life. So we are witnessing a very unique situation, and let's hope that it will get over soon, and let's see how the new norms will remain with us.
Yeah. And Farah, how the delivery based companies doing? Because in Pakistan, we saw that they got a blanket ban as well, along with the other sectors. But in Dubai, I noticed that they were still operating and enabling the stay at home. So maybe you comment on that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's seen actually exponential growth. So everything to do with the delivery, e-retail, e-commerce has grown exponentially, so much that now most e-based companies have issues with fulfilling orders. They're having a lot of problems with logistics because of the excessive demand. But they're ramping up quite fast. So be it food aggregators or the likes of Noon or Amazon, who are the biggest two marketplaces in the region. But by far the biggest growth for us has been obviously on the grocery end. So the grocery.coms here have grown by more than 100%. And it's very interesting to see because a lot of them, I would say maybe more than half the market had relied on still brick and mortar. They haven't really developed their digital ecosystem or the e-commerce offering. And they kind of scaled that and did that in the space of a couple of weeks. So they built everything, hired people, put the infrastructure, made sure the logistics are in place in such a short amount of time. So it's very, very interesting to see because there's not enough players in the market now to fulfill the demand. So right now it's on a massive upward trend because we're all, we're stuck at home 24 hours. That's the only we're relying on these platforms to live, basically, in a nutshell.
And that means the restaurants are still open, so they're delivering food as well, cooked food.
Restaurants, yes, the restaurants are open, obviously for delivery only. So the restaurants that don't already work with the likes of Uber Eats and Deliveroo have migrated towards some grassroots like platforms that just got developed right now to help these small businesses survive. And they kind of have a better financial model for these smaller restaurants than the Uber Eats and the Deliveroos.
Cool.
I have a question specifically on this. So if, for example, you're saying that those apps which were probably only food delivery apps before, now they're delivering the essentials and they've all of a sudden become grocery delivery apps as well. As an advertiser, how does it change anything for me? Because now I can advertise with them as well, which I was previously probably not doing at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the same. So on all of these platforms, it's kind of like they have their own different on-site ad formats. But it's not always a traditional, let's say, a traditional e-commerce, traditional advertising formats that we look at. So the likes of Talabat, for example, now, which is one of the biggest food delivery apps in the region, they have a full-fledged ad offering where you have search bars at the top and you can just quickly add to cart. Those have been growing in the past 2 weeks. This has not been a very developed ad ecosystem on these players. This has all happened very, very recently. So now we're seeing a lot of brands as well invest in their e-commerce strategies where that wasn't present before. So especially big FMCGs, because they don't sell direct to consumer. E-commerce was kind of such a small contribution to their business and kind of an afterthought. And now they're really ramping up the efforts on inking these partnerships, and they're helping these groceries and these e-retailers grow and develop.
Okay. We've discussed so much on the impact of Corona, so we'll try to take in a few other topics as well. And one I believe that we've worked together extensively on, and Sami helped in shaping as well, was the Arwa Abaya that we did on Personal Black as a brand. And basically that falls under the branded content umbrella. And I just wanted your view on how branded content in general has still gone in the region. How is it still doing? Is it something that brands are turning to as a new means of increasing engagement with consumers? And then Farhan, maybe you could also comment on how that trend is in Pakistan, because ever since the Coke Studio's success, and then Pepsi Battle of the Bands, and then after that you had so many other versions in terms of Veet and Sprite and Knorr Boreal Busters and so on. So is that the way to go for brands moving forward or not? So Farah, we start with you.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, actually. You guys gave me a complete blast from the past with Arwa Abaya. So during that time, actually, branded content was kind of new to the scene. So it had a novelty factor, and marketeers such as yourselves were willing to take the risk and invest on it. And it kind of continued to grow. And at some point, that growth plateaued. And that point was at the point where there was the emergence of performance media, so brands started to funnel their budgets more into trackable, more measurable, more tangible, lower funnel kind of advertising. And we saw this shift from being very content focused into being completely performance driven. So it kind of went to two ends of the spectrum. And now we're seeing it level out again, because brands are starting to understand that it's not either or. It's not a reach, like brand equity stuff or lower funnel performance stuff. So we're seeing the connect again. And because especially now we're able to kind of track that whole journey and measure the impact of one on the other as we become a lot more sophisticated with measurement frameworks and all of that. And today as well, from a supplier side, from a partner side, they're able to understand the nuances of branded content. So it's not this push scripted, it's kind of a lot more seamless, and the opportunities are becoming a lot more native. So it's growing again. And I know, we don't want to live in this Corona bubble, but Corona has actually really helped with that, because naturally there's so much time spent, especially on digital platforms. Right before Corona, we were all saying short form content, long form content doesn't work. Like nobody wants to hear about these big brand films and brand stories anymore, and brands don't want to pay for them. And now we're back into, people are invested in content. They're looking for entertainment. So it's kind of making a comeback from both ends, from brands accepting that it works for them, and from consumers wanting to invest time in good content, whether it comes from a brand or an influencer or whatever.
And the syndicated content also still big? The Voice, American Idol, these were pretty big back in the day. Are they still something that have huge followings, or have people been able to evolve to their own creation?
They were huge back in the day. Yeah, we used to compare them. So they're only high ratings outside of Ramadan. Recently, to be very honest, they suffered a lot. So the last run we looked at was about 30% decrease in terms of viewership. It's huge. So brands were not looking at it as a worthwhile investment, because it still had the same price tag. But I think now this trend will change again, with the fact that TV is picking up and people are, looking for content, and they're looking for, stories that they can engage with. We can expect, if this comes up, probably it would still be, it would still kind of pull in the right viewership.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know what Arwa Baya is, just to give you a background of what it was. So around 10 years back, with our brand Persil Abaya shampoo, we had a branded content which started off as a 10-minute segment in a morning show, which in short, I can say that it was more like American Idol of Abaya design. So similar format, people would vote and pick their winner. And from a 10-minute segment in a morning show to becoming a full-fledged show and reaching a point where we actually had an Abaya catwalk branded by Swarovski. So it was a long journey and a complete pleasure it was going there. Farhan, my question to you would be, so on one hand, we have the success of the Coke Studios, and I would say to a large extent is an Nescafe basement as well. But the reality shows never have been a success in Pakistan. Pakistan Idol, one season didn't work. Survivor back in 2004, we did Survivor Pakistan, did not work. And reality shows have not been. MasterChef itself, even though we are foodies and we have great examples of food, but no reality show has been a success in Pakistan. What do you think that could be the reason behind?
Sami, to start with, globally and specifically talking about Pakistan, when it comes to branded content, I think for us as Starcom, Coke, we have been doing Coke Studio for the last 12 years, and Coke Studios globally is top 5 Coke Studios in the world. So we have a very good example when it comes to Coke Studio, but at the same time, we need to understand that, when we say branded content, so the driver is mainly the content itself. So it's not about the brand, it's not about what the brand is offering, but it's more about how the solid content is that you are creating for the audience. And if the content is great, then we have several examples globally and regionally and locally as well that that has worked. But I believe that it's not a matter of that branded content worked before and now it's not working. branded content is always there. I remember for one of our clients, 20 years back, we did a branded content at that time when I think nobody actually knew that what branded content is, and still it's working. When you say the big ticket items like voice or idol, or it all depends. Like unfortunately in Pakistan, the way it has been done or executed, I think that was a major blow. I believe that it didn't work, but we have the appetite as TV audience and in terms of investment as well through different brands, that we can afford and we can do it still. But it all depends that how brands will make their brands relevant to that content itself. So it should not be on the face, but it should be part of that format, rather than just placing a product there and then saying that I'm I'm part of this content, or I'm producing this content. So it all depends that what kind of product, what kind of brand. And
I think we've lost Farhan.
Okay, I think I'll take a question from the audience now. So there's a question which is probably more directed towards us, even though we have a female. So the question is, females in Pakistan are really discouraged to take up marketing as a career. I'm a recent graduate in marketing, but everyone asks me not to come in marketing field. What's your suggestion in context of Pakistan? क्या कहेंगे sir?
First of all, I don't think that's true. I don't think females are discouraged to take up marketing. So the premise would be, something that we would have to debate as well. And I don't think it's a gender-based question, anyways. Marketing is about drive. It's about enthusiasm. It's about creativity. And it's about wanting to bring about change, trying to stamp your sort of mark on how things are done, whether you're working for existing big brands or whether you're working on a small brand and trying to launch it. So for me, the premise is debatable.
Farhan, the question we had was, marketing is not a field for females. Someone
In
from the
Pakistan,
audience asked.
apparently.
In Pakistan in particular. So would you like to say something on that? How many of your clients are females, by the way?
A lot, actually, and they are brilliant. I guess they are brilliant marketeers, and a lot of them you already know that who we are working with. And it's not a matter it's not a matter of gender discrimination to start with. So I don't know where this actually the question somebody thought about it, because it's not a matter of gender discrimination. It's at the end of the day, it's work, and whoever is good in their work, I think. And we have some good examples within our client portfolio as well, that where women are working very well and since long. So I totally don't agree with this with this question, to be honest.
Okay, so we have another question. Farah, I think we can have you to answer this. How do digital media KPIs compare to traditional media KPIs like GRPs, etc.? So KPIs, GRPs versus reach, engagement, etc.
Is that to me?
Yeah.
Okay, so recently all these media KPIs have taken a complete backseat. So I would even say kind of like thrown onto the side. They don't matter, because now we're looking at outcome-based KPIs, and more increasingly we see our clients tying us back down to those outcomes. So the discussions have no longer been around any media metrics. It doesn't matter. That's actually the agency's kind of forte, to know what kind of media metrics derive what results. But the discussions with clients have been around outcomes, sales impact, impact on brands. So these are the areas that we're kind of operating in. And we're seeing that evolve more, because our industry now is evolving into like kind of consultancy-based remuneration models. Now we have skin in the game. So we are on performance-based remuneration. So we're tied to their sales. So all these KPIs, are basically not KPIs that we discuss with our clients. We talk about direct impact to the bottom line. But from a media perspective, how have these KPIs changed? So on traditional media, unfortunately in the region, they have not. So, we still have not made a lot of progress when it comes to proper data. So we're still kind of measuring on the same static KPIs. From a digital perspective, of course, that's completely changed because of the access to data that we have that's unprecedented, and the way that the ecosystems are being built to be extremely connected. So I would say from a measurement perspective, not a lot of movement on areas like TV, but massive amount of movement in digital areas, especially with the emergence of technology.
Okay, Adil, do you think this can be applied here, in the sense that we can give our agency sales KPIs and then their performance is measured against them?
It should. I think it comes down to us in terms of demanding it when we start negotiating annual contracts and so on. You've already seen that we've evolved from spot-based rates and those kinds of discussions to average CPRPs, and you're trying to lock those in for longer periods of time. But there's nothing stopping us from working out models like this. It's just that the sort of acceptance of change that I've noticed is a little bit slow, but it's something that we can work on together as clients and agencies.
Yeah, it's actually slow from the client side. So the biggest hurdle in performance-based remuneration models, where the agency is tied into outcomes, is the client, never the agency. And I'm saying that because in order to enter into such an agreement, we need to have full access and transparency with the client. So, there's a lot of clients that are not willing to share data, that they still see their agency as a third party instead of a partner. So unless that evolves, we'll never really move into a fully outcome-based discussion.
Yeah.
But
Farhan, you had a point on this.
Just to add, and further building on what you guys just said, we are already working with a few clients based on performance. So to start with, and this is the way the clients are evolving and the agency. And to be honest, our future as media agencies and the way we are evolving is going towards in this direction. So it's no more an argument or a discussion between agency and client that how much reach I'm getting with X number of dollars and whatever, but it's more of how you will be able to contribute in the actual business side of it. So I always tell this to my team that and we drive that internally, that first, if we get a new client, you first need to understand their business challenges, and then you would be able to service them well. Because if I don't know the challenges of your business, for example, I would not be able to give you even the media solutions that you require from me.
Correct.
And that's the difference between us and the agencies who are evolving, that we need to be part of their business, and we need to play that role where we need to be accountable for their business, rather than just fulfilling that these are the reach numbers that you have required me, and that's it, and I'll take my fee and that's it. So it's not a matter of that. Yes, unfortunately, there are still clients who doesn't share data with the agencies, or who are reluctant to do that. But I see that there is a change coming in, and even if it's a global client, MNC, or a local client, people are getting educated, because at the end of the day, nobody will give you a fee just on the basis that my execution is good and I'm bringing you the required GRPs, and that's it. Even the marketeers will not be doing this in the future, and that's not very far away that I can see.
And building
Farhan,
on
you've worked in.
Building on something
okay,
you said, Farhan, in terms of the evolving role of the media agency, the age-old question: how far do you think this is going to go? Are you going to make creative agencies obsolete? Are you going to make production houses obsolete? Are you going to, sort of merge them in? So this is something that keeps getting asked every few years, but we see more and more again that this is happening. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a very valid question right now. Even post COVID, I will see that these things will be moving in this direction very fast, and it already started. So I'll give you the way we are working. One, we need to understand the way agency business is evolving. It's not a matter of delivering on GRPs or whatever, like I just said. So it's more of a business partner. And when you say that we are business partners, then the clients expect from us that we are true partners, and we will be there whatever they need from. So I'll take you back, like in Pakistan or even in Middle East, 20, 25 years back, when there was an advertising agency, and within advertising there is a media unit, and then there is a client service, and then there is creative, right? And then what happened is that we evolved, and then media business went separately, which is called a media buying house or a media buying unit or whatever you call it. And then and we need to keep in mind, I'll just give you the context of it, is that at that time even the media industry itself was evolving. So 25 years back or 20 years back, there was like 2 or 3 channels in Pakistan. Now we have more than 100 channels. So that was the time when even the overall industry was evolving. So it came out to be a very specialized unit within the advertising agency. I think the way we have evolved in the last 20, 25 years, and the way we are evolving now, and the way marketeers are asking us, the consultancy role of a media agency, even that requires that you need to go beyond, and you need to think beyond the core of your media delivery. So yes, we have already evolved in terms of providing more services rather than just media. So we are having an internal production house internally. I would not say that it's comparable to a creative agency, but believe me, I have a much quicker turnaround time versus a creative agency, because I am very thin in terms of team, and I can, and this is something that I'm evolving right now, so I am putting more efforts in getting things done. So what I'm trying to say is that, be it digital media or conventional, be it activation, outdoor, or even providing creative services, we are already doing it. And I can see that we are going back to the same model like 25 years back, when one agency is giving you, yes, so there is a competition from us as media agencies towards creative agency as well. And this is the way creative agencies are evolving as well, Adil, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And Farah, do you see the same in MENA and GCC as well?
Yeah, yes. So the trend of convergence back into one consolidated partner is definitely something we're seeing. So it's basically one of two. So either clients have asked for bespoke group solutions where, let's say under the Omnicom umbrella, for example, it's, part of the creative agencies merged with part of the media, part of the brand team. So they've kind of, so we see that with the likes of, like, let's say Nissan here in the region, where they have specialized unit, which is, which is a full suite in terms of all types of services. Or, you've seen a complete, like, clients are actually demanding, this kind of one full integrated solution. So from an OMD perspective, for example, I want to say about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, maybe, we launched a full creative department with more than 20 people under that umbrella. And we saw, obviously, there's a lot of synergies to be created when you have media and creative in the same, housed under the same, unit, basically. And especially because now when we talk creative, we're not talking about multi-million-dollar, like TVCs anymore with like big ticket productions. We're talking about extremely agile, responsive creative. So the media agencies were able to funnel in data to their creative units in quite a fast way to be able to have like this agility when it comes to creative. So that was like a massive success story for us. More recently, we also went into like a lot more in terms of we invested a lot more in terms of diversified services. So we launched an e-commerce arm within OMD as well. So now, we're able to service a client from every aspect: CRM, e-commerce, social media, creative, activations, in the core media. And that's been really, really important because all of these are connected. And at the end of the day, there's one red thread, which is, data tying back to consumers. So there's a lot to be gained, whether you look at it from a cost efficiency perspective. If you have a procurement mindset, which many clients do, there's a lot to be gained there. But also from like a consistency when it comes to brand communication, or being able to have a long-term view, because everything is looked at holistically. So I definitely see that trend is going to continue. And, we've seen that with a lot of our big clients, that they're moving and they're kind of shaping the industry to be that way.
Sami, you're on mute.
There are a couple of questions which have been already addressed. Ushna, your question on matrices of Facebook has already been addressed. Umair, we have already spoken about the changes in media, so we'll not get into that again. Farhan, my question to you would be: so you've worked both in Pakistan and in the Middle East. So, and Farah has the clear perspective of the Middle East. So, from your point of view, particularly on on TV, I'm saying traditional media, how different is it working in the Middle East and from media planning and execution point of view, and similarly in Pakistan? What are the three or four main differences in both the regions as far as media is concerned?
So, from a broader perspective, I think that there are a lot of similarities, but I can compare it very easily that Mina is more organized when it comes to data and the way broadcasters work with you versus Pakistan. Still, I think there is a lot of room in Pakistan where us as media industry, which is the agency side and the broadcaster side, needs to organize more, especially the broadcasters, and they are actually working on it, and they are in this direction. The common thing that is missing in both markets, which I believe that everyone's, especially the media agencies, pain point is one currency data. We have TAM data, which works in isolation, and we don't have one currency when it comes to digital as well. So it's the same case in MENA. And when I was there till 2017, there was a lot of work being done, but unfortunately, nothing happened there. And there is a lot of discussion in Pakistan as well when it comes to one currency data, and we are also working on that. But I'm really looking forward to have that, so it will increase a lot of efficiencies. Just to add on the last discussion that we were having on the agency evolving and all that. So it's like Farah said that they are evolving in terms of providing e-commerce and production and activation. It's the similar trend here in Pakistan, and we have already started offering this. One should keep in mind, either marketers or media people, is that data and technology are the two basic elements that you need to to master on, because now there is no more even creative that is being made without data, because it's all backed by data, that what kind of content that you're producing, even if it's a TVC. And fortunately, media agencies, I would say, that are more agile and to work with data. So that's kind of an edge that we have, because we have been working and basing our strategies based on data, and this is the same thing that we are doing when we work on content and production as well. So that's something that that is evolving, and this is something that we are moving in that direction.
Okay, as usual, there are questions on Coke Studio, and there's not a single episode that goes without questions on Coke Studio. The question they're asking, which Farhan probably you wouldn't comment on, is whether Coke Studio versus Battle of the Bands. What's the results? What are the results of Battle of the Bands? So I think let's not get into that debate. I can give my point of view, Adil can give his, but Farhan will hopefully not, because he's directly working on the brand. So my view is, one is a music platform. Coke Studio is a pure music platform, whereas Battle of the Bands is a reality show, closer to a reality show. So there's a possibility that Battle of the Bands will compromise on music. There will be bad music. There will be more drama. It will be closer to what you see in American Idol or Indian Idol, as compared to a Coke Studio, where the primary focus will always be music. Whether it has done well for the brand Pepsi after so many years, the reason that they did 2 seasons, I think it is working. That's why they would continue doing it. And again, I think it'll take a longer time to build the brand all over again. This year, we don't know if either of them will happen. I have my doubts that any of the two things will happen, but you never know. If it doesn't happen, we'll miss music. Both the cases, I think some great music came out of both. Music is always very subjective. You might like some songs, you might not like the other songs. But there are good songs in but the bands, there are good songs in Coke Studio as well. Let's hope for the best, and let's hope the music keeps coming out. Adil.
Yeah, for me, I like both formats. To be honest, Coke Studio becomes a little hit or miss, because it gives you the end product in terms of music. So sometimes some creations are amazing and some are just run of the mill. Battle of the Bands is always going to be a lot of drama, as you said, but it also gives you some great talent that comes up and gives good music also. So yeah, for me, both formats are good. I like both brands in terms from a branding perspective. So I view it as a music lover. Um, I actually have a question for both of you, and given your areas of expertise, I'm looking for an answer because it's a problem I faced when I moved back to Pakistan and started working on a local brand which was fairly big in Pakistan and does a lot here in terms of branding, activation, and so on. And is also big internationally, meaning it's present in quite a few countries across the world, and has just recently started some sort of marketing activities there as well. But from a media perspective, it remains a challenge in terms of how it travels abroad. Um, and that remains so because the first entry point is always the expats that you look at who travel from your country to these other countries, and you try and reach them through maybe the same channels that they might be looking at from their home countries. But then how does it evolve from there in terms of if the mainstream or the local people of those countries are also looking at or let's say you can also make your brand relevant for them. So how do you reach them? And if distribution is not an issue, and Farah, here maybe you can also look at Brill as an example, which the Lebanese and the Egyptians were able to carry the affinity from their home countries and then use it still in the UAE without any actual advertising or marketing efforts on it. So how do you think we can solve that? And Farhan, from your side, what I would be interested in is because most of these homegrown channels don't have broadcasting rights as in they're not broadcasting registered licenses in these in Western countries. They're just beaming the beams, and there's usually a third party involved if you're working through a certain media buying house, and that leads to a double commission kind of phenomena as well. And there's no real data that you can actually look at. So what kind of model should there be for brands that are trying to expand from Pakistan and going global from a media point of view?
So should I start or?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So it depends, Adil, on the dynamics that for the brand that we are talking about. So I'll give you an example that sitting in Pakistan, we are working for a few clients who are who have presence in the region. And so, for example, working in Pakistan, I would not name the brand, but they are also present in MENA. And since we are part of Starcom network, so whatever they are trying to advertise in Middle East, for example, so Starcom Dubai or Starcom Saudi will be helping them in terms of getting that done. At the same time, a few brands that we are working, and we are working for them in Afghanistan as well. So in Pakistan, we are managing their media when it comes to Afghanistan as well, and there is no additional cost to it or anything. Yes, they are not that organized in terms of data or maybe distribution, for example. But yes, there are certain examples where we are working. It all depends that what kind of model they are working with. So there are, I know some brands who are present in Middle East, but they are not directly present there. They have their partners there. So they don't have that kind of visibility in that market, be it distribution, be it in terms of media presence. So they might suffer. But if it's consolidated out of Pakistan and then going abroad, I think I don't see that it might be a problem. Yes, there might be some double taxation, of course, because when the country changes, then there, and it all depends that how they want to invest in media, with, be it a local presence there, and then they are booking media, or they are booking it from Pakistan. So it depends a lot when it comes to dynamics of the brand. But I don't see in this age of media and the way we are being organized in every country that there might be that much of big problems that one might think of not going abroad or having such problems. So, and this is the same I have witnessed when I was working in Saudi as well, that there were two brands there that started their business in Pakistan. One was Petroman Oil, a very famous oil brand in Saudi. They started working here in Pakistan, and we helped it from Starcom Pakistan, and it went very well. after that, there were some business problems that they faced. That's a different element altogether. But I don't see that it will be a problem. And especially those clients who are on digital mainly, it becomes very easy to manage that compared to conventional media, if you ask. So again, it depends on the dynamics of the client that how they want
And
to.
Farah, your take in terms of if you were asked to, take a local brand from another country and sort of make that big in your region, or local brands in Saudi or UAE wanting to go abroad as well and asking you for help, how would you approach that?
Well, of course, it would have to, again, as Farhan said, it would have to depend on the brand and the dynamic. So I can give you kind of like a top line answer to that. So 3 things to consider. The first being, you asked how can this brand travel from one region to the next? Beyond expats who carry the equity of that brand, it really doesn't, especially in this region, because we don't see they're very nuanced and different when it comes to demographics, the Asian population here, and within the Asian population, there's lots of segments versus the Arab expats versus the locals, very different buying behavior. So that heritage does not transfer from one to one. So that equity does not travel, I would say, as a blanket answer. But number 2, what you would want to do is, and this is how we've done it for most of the brands that we're taking out of a region and kind of launched in another, is we look at similar markets. So we look at markets that are in the same trajectory in terms of consumer behavior, in terms of culture, so we try to model it based on the success stories and the cases from markets like that. And I'm sure there would be some synergies. So at least so that you make your buck travel more, you bank on, successful case studies in similar markets or proxy markets, basically. And that's where, again, your network of agencies can help you, because obviously they'll be very connected and clued into that exchange of information. And the third point is, given all of this, it would probably mean building a brand from scratch, because it doesn't come with the heritage, it doesn't come with the advocacy. 9 out of 10 times, it's probably going to be a category that's already saturated and super competitive. So it's really about, it's really about establishing a brand, I would say. And, that follows the same principles of how do we launch and build brand equity and all of that.
Okay, 2 very interesting questions have come in from Mr. Abdullah Taki. Any of you can answer. First is in-game advertising. How is that shaping up? How big it is as compared to what it was before? And second thing is that a lot of celebrities are going live these days because of the current situation. Has anyone started branding those live videos? Farah?
And maybe we can throw in TikTok in the same question. So how is TikTok evolving in both the regions?
Okay. TikTok, huge. I mean, I have TikTok exhaustion, to be honest, myself. If I see one TikTok dance, I might commit suicide. Exponential growth for TikTok. It's crazy. I mean, it's a whole subculture on its own now. So there's social media and then there's TikTok. It's a whole different universe now. So massive growth. And obviously now brands are more comfortable with TikTok because they've kind of got a grip on brand safety measures. So even from a ad spend perspective, we expect it to grow much more from that end. In-game advertising as well, huge increase here in the region. So the last number I was looking at was about 10 days ago, and it was from one player, and it was around 30% increase. Just around, this is just the effect of COVID. So obviously with that increase, there's an increase in terms of, in-game advertising and ad spends related to that. And there's been so much in innovation and creativity and what's now defined as in-game advertising versus before. So it's really about living in that virtual space now rather than just kind of splashing within, app network or gaming network or whatever. And my last question was, sorry, you have to remind me.
Live shows.
Oh, right.
Celebrities are doing the live shows.
Yeah, so live is definitely like the topic of Corona. Actually, everything has become either live or virtual, obviously. There's been so much success. It started in markets like the US and the UK with their celebrities, which are obviously global celebrities. And it kind of started organically. And then it kind of started to mold into like these big activations. So there was one that happened earlier this week. Both Pepsi and Coke actually were sponsors of it. And it had all like a massive lineup of big stars, but there was no collateral around it. So it's not like an overly branded thing. And I think they purposely did not want to do it that way so that it doesn't look like a brand initiative rather than a brand extending support. So no, we haven't seen a lot of brands, for us at least in the region, completely develop something and own it from scratch yet. They're kind of around the content and supporting it rather than pushing it or facilitating it. To be honest, I think it's a great opportunity though, because you know that whole live fills in a gap of the together at home thing that people are missing. So I think brands can really start to innovate in that space.
Farhan, the same thing in Pakistan. Firstly, TikTok. Should we start advertising on TikTok?
Yeah, of course. Why not? The industry is working on. Again, the major question on TikTok is the brand safety because of the content that a lot of brands are still working on in terms of brand safety. That should we go or not, and what would be the precautions and how they will gauge that brand safety be intact. So yes, definitely, it's a good platform. It's huge globally and becoming huge in Pakistan as well. But still, brands are it's in their list, but they are still thinking of it, and they are thinking of actually making it relevant to their brands because it's not just that going and being part of it, but to make it relevant. So this is as we talk now. This is the time or the days where actually a lot of brands I know which we handle as well are working towards it, and I think in near future you will see a lot of brands associating with TikTok. When it comes to celebrity videos, it's a new phenomena, and I think it's really working. Still, again, on this, that brands are still evaluating it and trying to evaluate it in terms of making it or making an association with it. So, like I said, COVID came as a surprise to all of us. So it's a surprise for marketeers as well that they are gauging that is it the right time and the right platform to be associated. Like Farah said that Coke and Pepsi were part of it. A few of our brands that we are working with, especially on these, they are not going in a direction where they are going to solely sponsor it, but make it more of a combine or a consortium of brands going into it at the same time, because that's not the right time to go and associate and sponsor it as one sponsor rather than being there with different other brands. So, and what is the other question? If you can remind me.
In game.
Yeah, gaming is evolving in Pakistan. It's not that big as Farah has mentioned, and when I was in Middle East, it was picking up really well. It's picking up in Pakistan as well, but still it's not there. But yes, recently we won the global award as well in Korea, so that gives us a very good direction. But still, those brands who are being internationally associated with gaming, they are thinking of going in Pakistan as well. But I think it might take some time to because it's not scalable right now. It's not that big. And I know I will not name the brands, but a few brands tried to associate themselves with gaming. But what I've observed is that they didn't get that kind of an ROI from there. So I think it's not that scalable right now, but definitely it will. It will take some time in Pakistan.
Okay. My 2 cents on the topic. I think the arguments against TikTok are all classist arguments. Because if the same thing was done by a celebrity or a known figure on Instagram, nobody would have a problem. But the start of TikTok was all in a certain masses, which were not really relatable to all the classes. So anybody who's against TikTok thinks that the content is not good enough, which I am too, by the way. I also cannot stand it. But the reality is the target audience for that platform is very different, and it is huge. And I think at some point, all the brands which are targeting that target audience will be accepting it without being classist about that. In game, I think personally, I think we have a long way to go. For live sessions, the risk with any live session is it can go wrong. But if you're doing it with the celebrities who have done it before in the past and who are professional enough, so I don't think they'll mess it up. So I think that's an area which can be explored, but it has a very short life. This will be over very soon because all the celebrities and all the viewership that they have these days will not last very long in my view. So I think if anybody has to do it, they have to do it right away. Otherwise, it'll be late. Adil, what do you think?
Because people usually, I mean, pre-COVID, it was all about people controlling, the content they consume on their own time. So this whole live stream thing is, it feels like an appointment, and people don't usually have that time on hand, unless it's, Corona lockdown. So I agree with you. It's probably going to die down post all of this.
Okay, another question. Films, cinema, in film branding, product integration, how do you see it, Farhan, in Pakistan? I've seen it, I think, very shallow and crass. I haven't seen much of MENA films, so I don't know how good or bad it's done. We have a long way to go in that as well. And I think, I don't think we have progressed in that. We still have the same in the face kind of branding in the films.
Sami, we are learning and evolving when it comes to cinema, both as an industry and marketeers as well. So yes, we have grown a bit in the last few years, and the cinema industry has revived, but still a long way to go, both in terms of production quality and story building and all that, because you can see a lot of, you can feel the TV kind of a script and feel when you go and see a movie in Pakistan. So we need to go out from TV and do justice to cinema itself in terms of production, because that's totally a different genre. And similarly, marketeers are evolving in terms of how they want to associate. Yes, you are right. In the previous years, brands have associated themselves with movies on the face kind of a thing, which is not properly integrated. But I think if we still going to invest in cinema, things will get better and improved. And I think the same way marketeers will be, and agencies even will be, doing a better job. But right now, we still need to go a long way.
In MENA region, how's in film advertising?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, it's still, it's still probably not where it needs to be in this region, because we still get brands expecting, very explicit, presence of the brand. So it's, it feels very scripted and very forced. And I don't think this is a MENA or Pakistan problem. It's just, it's to be honest, marketeers accepting that, it doesn't matter how long your brand is on screen. It's more about the brand being part of the story. So it has to be ingrained in the script and part of the story, and be completely seamless and authentic. And sometimes that means, yes, less time on screen, but, people would probably be more receptive to that because, it's a turnoff, to be honest, for consumers to see a brand in their face, or somebody picking up a phone and then, kind of like zoom in on the phone and, like that kind of explicit in your face advertising, It doesn't fly anymore. So yeah, I mean,
just did branding of your phone, by the way. It was the branded post in this show. Adil, you've been making 5-minute films yourself, so you guys have your own films. You don't need films.
Yeah, you heard, Farah, long form content is back in fashion. So,
So either it's less than 10 seconds or it's 5 minutes films,
Yeah, but it's amazing. Sorry, go ahead, Farah.
You also heard what Farhan said, which is, it doesn't matter, long form, short form, it has to be good content, Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Both of you, what happens in Ramadan? It's starting in a couple of days. I think in Gulf it's starting tomorrow, Ramadan.
Yep.
Tomorrow and day after tomorrow. So what changes in Ramadan from media point of view this year? Is it going to be same as last Ramadan, or is it going to be
No,
different Ramadan
definitely
this
it will
year?
be a different Ramadan this year. Both mainly because of COVID and mainly because there are certain restrictions when it comes to production in terms of the way. So, for example, the game shows being produced in Pakistan. There are certain restrictions for camera that you would not be able to produce it in the same way. So the formats have changed due because of the lockdown. There are certain productions which were being on hold or being cancelled because of the lockdown. So there are certain content which will not be present in Pakistan during Ramadan in Pakistan. So it will be a different Ramadan, high viewership because everyone will be at home and watching
Correct.
TV, which has already started. High consumption of digital media, which already started after the lockdown, and it will further increase. We all know that there is a lifestyle change in Ramadan, and I've been to Saudi during Ramadan, and the night becomes the day and the day becomes night in Saudi. So similarly, more or less the same pattern here in Pakistan as well. So it will be a different Ramadan. Let's see that how channels will respond in terms of content, but it will not be the same Ramadan. So if I go into more detail, that Ramadan picks up, viewership picks up during Ramadan when it's before iftar and then goes late night. But this year Ramadan would be different in terms of we'll have viewership across the day because people are working from home and they are consuming media as well. So this gives opportunity for brands to, rather than focusing just during iftar and sahri time, there are certain day parts which will have more better viewership and better rates actually to invest in. So it will be a different Ramadan, and we should be very smart, both the media agency and the advertisers, in terms of picking their bets during Ramadan.
Farah, in the Gulf region, what happens this year different?
I mean, I think it's Farhan covered it mostly from a media perspective. Obviously, we're already on an upward trajectory in terms of consumption when it comes to TV and digital, so it's pretty much the same. The only difference this year in Ramadan, I would say, let me park media aside, but more from a brand perspective, is two things. One is right now, consumer behavior and consumer sentiment is being shaped by what's happening in Corona. So people have moved away from, initially they were very concerned about health, and now people are very concerned about financials. And if you look at the search trends, you can clearly see from, search trends in health related stuff spiking, and then now it's more about unemployment, finances, people worried about losing their jobs. So and it being Ramadan, obviously, there's a role for brands to play in that space, addressing people's concerns, taking more of a value angle, so it's, brands should kind of adjust to that new reality. And the second thing is there's certain, we know that consumption goes up, but it's the content categories, specific content categories that we need to look at. So, things like cooking, for example, exponential growth. So almost 50% growth on watch time on YouTube, for example. We expect that to continue. Exercise, it makes the headlines for the first time in the GCC region, and we expect that to continue because there's increased focus on health. So a lot of these kind of topics about health and wellness, and these are the kinds of things that are going to actually continue to increase, and where brands need to focus on creating content that adds value. Last point I want to make is the one thing that needs to be considered is what all the research is showing is that consumers want brands to add have a positive impact or remove from their anxiety and stress. That's every single piece of research out there for all the regions. And Ramadan is an opportunity to do that, especially because it's when people expect brands to be purpose-driven. So you have consumers asking for that, and you have an opportunity, within the context of Ramadan. So I really think brands need to shape their communication around, finding the middle ground between the two.
Okay, then thank you very much, both of you. There have been a few questions on e-commerce. We covered most of them in our last episode when we had Food Panda and Faraz with us. So the video is available on our YouTube channel and also on Facebook page. So please go through that. Generally, there's a bit of popularity contest going on in the show, and we in the end announce who's the winner of the marketing per se hamper. So this week's hamper, based on the popularity, goes to Farhan. Farhan, thank you very much and congratulations. It's a hypothetical hamper; you don't get anything, but the accolades and bragging rights are with you. But you will still get the hamper because you're a very, very special guest. Thank you very much, both of you. And any parting words before we close up the session? Farah.
I would, Farah, let's have Farah first. Yeah, please.
No, I mean, just thank you. It's good to see you guys again.
Thank you.
Likewise.
It's been a long time. So for if you guys don't know, obviously both Sami and Adil were my clients at some point. So it's interesting being on this end where I'm presenting to you guys and selling to you. So yeah, but thank you. It was really great.
Pleasure. Just Farhan, please.
Thank you guys for inviting, and I think it's a good start. Thanks to COVID as well that we are having more of these kind of sessions, which is good for the industry as well, because we discuss a lot of things, and especially both of you are from the marketing side, and sitting with agencies and discussing and having an open discussion. I think it always adds value to us and rest of the audience as well. So please keep it up. Good job you guys doing. And
Thank you.
happy Ramadan, and hopefully to get out of this COVID thing as soon as possible, inshallah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Stay
so
home,
much, guys.
Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Farah.
Hafiz.
Bye, Adil.
Bye,
Allah
Farhan.
Hafiz.
Bye, Farah.